Every toy that was banned after we bought it. 1. Sky Dancers, 1993. You assumed a plastic ballerina was harmless. It was actually a 1993 aerodynamic hazard that generated 12 pounds of downward torque on a single pull string. Hasbro shipped exactly 500,000 units before the CPSC logged over 2,000 emergency room visits in just 14 months. You remember the exact hollow snap of the nylon cord as you yanked it, watching the plastic figure rocket toward your cousin's temple at 45 miles per hour. We called it a game. Regulators called it a projectile. The 1995 recall destroyed the entire production run, but the real danger wasn't the flying doll itself. It was the psychological warfare that came when the toys learned how to listen. 2. Furby, 1998. You thought your Furby was just a glitchy Tamagotchi hybrid. It was actually flagged by the Pentagon and NSA in 1998 for suspected unauthorized radio frequency recording. Tiger Electronics embedded a 400 Hz piezoelectric microphone and a 1.2 MHz RF transmitter into a plush shell, allowing unverified data transmission to nearby receivers. You felt the exact heavy thrum of its gear motors at 2 a.m., watching the infrared eye sensor pulse while it muttered gibberish in Furbish. Over 27 million units sold, and the Department of Defense formally banned them from secure facilities due to theoretical eavesdropping vulnerabilities. We treated a silicon brain like a pet, ignoring how easily it could be weaponized. But audio paranoia was a minor footnote compared to the acoustic shrapnel hiding in your backyard drawer. 3. Clackers, 1973/1990s reissue. The plastic clackers of the 1990s were marketed as retro novelties. The original 1970s acrylic versions were literally shattering at 50 miles per hour, spraying microfragments into retinas. You'd grip the wooden handle, swing the twin spheres vertically, and feel the exact violent vibration as the hard acrylic collided at a decibel spike of 104. The CPSC issued a 1974 emergency ban after tracking 800 corneal abrasions, but gray market reissues flooded mall kiosks in 1998. You didn't read the warning label. You just swung harder until the plastic spiderwebbed. Manufacturers ignored fracture point engineering because kinetic momentum sold units faster than safety compliance. We treated shattered polymers like a rite of passage. But broken glass couldn't compare to the invisible chemical burns brewing inside a plastic mold. 4. Creepy Crawlers Thingmaker, 1996 reissue. You believed melting plastic bugs was harmless arts and crafts. It was an unregulated metallurgical foundry, operating at 400 degrees Fahrenheit inside a suburban playroom. The 1964 original and 1996 reissue heated a zinc alloy die plate to liquefy plastigoop, releasing volatile formaldehyde and trace lead vapors into enclosed spaces. You pressed down on the rubber bulb, felt the scorching heat radiate through the metal grate, and watched molten resin seep into insect cavities. Mattel quietly phased out the line in 2001 after EPA reports flagged indoor VOC levels exceeding 3 times the safe residential threshold. We inhaled carcinogens while shaping centipedes, completely blind to the respiratory toll. But chemical exposure was just a slow poison compared to the magnetic implosion waiting inside your cereal box prize. 5. Magnetix, 2006. You thought building geometric domes with magnetic rods was safe. It was a gastrointestinal triage nightmare, engineered by high-Gauss neodymium. Mega brands manufactured 13 million units before swallowing reports triggered a 2006 Class 1 recall, involving 2,500 documented injuries. You clicked those triangular connectors together, listening to the sharp metallic snap, as 38-ounce pull force locked them into a rigid lattice. If 3 or more spheres breached the digestive tract, they magnetically aligned through intestinal walls, causing 11mm perforations and mandatory surgical resections. The CPSC didn't just recall the set. They mandated 30,000 Gauss containment protocols. We treated magnetic attraction like engineering, not a medical threat, but surgical magnets were child's play compared to the federal smuggling crackdowns on a certain chocolate surprise. 6. Kinder Surprise Egg. 1997, U.S. import ban. You assumed chocolate and plastic toys could legally coexist. The FDA's 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act explicitly banned any edible shell containing a non-food insert. Ferrero ignored U.S. import statutes until 1997, shipping 40 million units annually, while customs agents seized crates at Newark port. You cracked the foil wrapper, heard the exact hollow rattle of a 1.5-ounce plastic capsule inside, and never connected the choking hazard to federal contraband laws. The DOJ levied $145,000 per violation, but the black market thrived anyway. We smuggled contraband in grocery bags, because a blind plastic blind was worth the fine. But federal contraband is barely illegal compared to what the next lawn toy did to human bone density. If your stomach is already recoiling from how casually we ingested federal contraband, the complete forensic recall ledger and chemical breakdown charts are mapped in the description. Let's keep going. 7. Lawn darts. Jarts. 1988. You thought throwing weighted rods at a target ring was innocent fun. It was a gravity-assisted puncture hazard that logged over 3,000 emergency room visits in a single decade. The 1960s Jarts design featured hollow zinc tips weighing exactly 1.2 kilograms. Engineered to bury themselves in turf upon impact. You hefted the 8-inch steel shaft, felt the cold weight shift in your palm, and launched it in a perfect arc toward your neighbor's lawn. When the arc missed, it struck skulls at terminal velocity, causing 8 verified pediatric fatalities before Congress passed the 1988 Lawn Dart Safety Act. The federal ban was absolute, yet bootleg manufacturers reproduced them using heavier iron alloys for 2 decades. We treated ballistic physics like backyard cricket, but metal penetration was just kinetic energy, compared to the date rape precursor hiding in a bead-making kit. 8. Aqua Dots. 2007. You assumed crafting bracelets from water-activated beads was harmless. The manufacturing solvent swap in 2006 introduced 1,4-butanediol, a chemical that metabolizes into GHB inside the human body. CPSC testing revealed exactly 2,000 milligrams of the compound per gram of coating, enough to trigger respiratory depression at 50 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. You sprinkled the tray with tap water, watched the polymer film dissolve, and inhaled microscopic aerosolized vapor before placing the sticky beads on your tongue. 45 countries initiated simultaneous recalls within 72 hours, but the supply chain had already saturated 42,000 retail outlets. We treated toxic chemistry like a craft tutorial, completely ignoring the neurochemical hijack. But metabolic conversion was a slow burn compared to the thermal runaway waiting inside your Christmas stocking. 9. Hoverboard. 2015. You thought self-balancing scooters were just clunky Segway clones? They were lithium cobalt oxide thermal bombs with 0 voltage regulation or pressure release vents. Amazon logged 99 confirmed thermal events in December 2015, pushing temperatures past 1,600 degrees Celsius within 4 minutes of short-circuit ignition. You stood on the rubberized footpad, felt the internal gyroscopes whine at 60 Hz, and watched the battery casing warp as it breached containment. The CPSC halted imports until UL 2272 certification mandated 24-layer flame-retardant insulation and dual-circuit isolation. We rode on unregulated chemistry packs because balance algorithms outsold safety engineering. But battery incineration was localized destruction compared to the gastrointestinal implosion awaiting the next desk toy. 10. Buckyballs. You believed stacking tiny desk magnets was purely therapeutic. It was a surgical emergency manufactured from neodymium iron boron alloy with a 3,800 Gauss field strength. Zen Magnets and Maxfield Enterprises shipped 12 million units before pediatric surgeons reported 214 bowel resections caused by magnetic compression necrosis. You felt the exact metallic pinch as the 7mm spheres snapped together across a 2mm skin barrier, creating a blood flow blockade that mimicked ischemic stroke. The 2012 federal injunction forced a complete market exit, but the secondary eBay trade surged by 400% within a year. We treated high-powered magnetism like stress relief, ignoring the anatomical crushing force. But magnetic perforation was just physical trauma compared to the ionizing decay radiating from vintage glass collectibles. 11. Uranium glass marbles. 1920s to 1970s. You assumed vintage marbles were harmless antique playthings. They contained 2% uranium dioxide ore, emitting 1,500 becquerels of alpha radiation per cubic centimeter. The NRC never classified them as consumer hazards because the glass matrix trapped 90% of beta emissions, but direct skin contact still delivered localized radiation burns. You dropped the heavy silica sphere onto hardwood, heard the exact dense thud, and watched the fluorescent green flash under blacklight without knowing it was Cherenkov radiation. Collectors paid $300 for mint specimens, completely blind to the bone-seeking decay chains of uranium-238. We hoarded radioactive artifacts as childhood currency, but passive alpha decay was a whisper compared to the systemic mercury poisoning engineered into nursery furniture. 12. Phenylmercuric acetate teething rings. 1974. You believed rubber teething rings were clinically safe for infants. They were impregnated with 2.5 parts per million of phenylmercuric acetate to prevent fungal growth in damp nurseries. FDA threshold limits for infant neurotoxicity sat at 0.1 parts per million, meaning every bite released 20 times the lethal vapor concentration. Parents boiled the rings, watching the exact milky film separate as mercury vaporized into a concentrated aerosol cloud that coated crib mattresses. The 1980 CPSIA amendment finally banned organomercury in all infant products after longitudinal studies correlated it with permanent renal impairment. We sterilized neurotoxins in boiling water, completely unaware that preservation killed development.